Yay.
Okay. All right. Welcome everyone. Jeremiah Webb here with Parenting Alone, the Parenting Accelerator Program, and the Junior Step Away CEO Program for children of divorce who are 13 or older. So we wanted to do a Facebook Live today to really share some of the best practices of people around the world that we've come across, that we see who are living, doing, breathing, sleeping, the things that we advocate for, the things we train for, the things we ask for, and the things that we encourage for. And so we'd like to welcome Becca and Robbie. Is that what you go by or what you prefer?
Yeah.
Rebecca, you can call us whatever you want.
We're calling them the co-parenting superheroes, but we'd like to welcome them to our show today. It's November 16th, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And so really today, what we wanted to talk about is their story. And so they'll fill you in a little bit better, but just a high level 30,000 foot view is that they were married, I believe, for about 10 years or so, for quite a while, have some kids together, had a divorce that did not, wasn't like the most peaceful, amazing, celebratory thing. And was actually, probably very hard and difficult. And they can go into that more. I'll let them explain it for themselves. But at some point they realized, hey guys, look, like we this is about the kids and we need to create an amazing environment for the kids. And so they have, and they've really, not just from what I've heard and talked to about, but others that have seen them and have talked to them have commented on how impressed they were. So we wanted to ask them to come on, kind of tell their story. Maybe walk us through, you guys can just open it up, but walk us through kind of what led up to it, how it was like kind of rocky. And then what was the moment that you really was like, we got to do something, like something has to change. And so even if you can identify the moment, I'll ask some questions along, but I really just want to kind of turn the time over to you and then we'll ask some questions as we go.
Cool. Where should we start? We were married for 10 years. Yeah. We got married in May 2003. We dated for almost a year. And we got married in the temple, in the Mormon, in the LDS faith, of which we are no longer members, but that was a really important part, I think, of our courtship and our marriage and our relationship. Yeah, and sure. When we left the church too, it was mutual.
We left together.
Yeah. And I think that's really fortunate too, because often I know a lot of people that are married inside of a religious context. And then if one person departs from that in and of itself can just create a lot of strain and conflict. Yeah. So I feel really blessed that we did that. It was a lot of conversations and that we were able to do that together. Yeah. That's a question we get asked a lot. Like, well, was it because like one of you left the faith? We're like, nope, we did it together.
No, set the record straight. I mean, really.
So yeah, 2 kids. We have 2 boys, Sean and Ryan. They're now 13 and 11. And I don't know what you want to say about our marriage and stuff. But.
Well, it's like, for the most part, it's like, I think for like most people, they have a really good relationship for a period of time or a long period of time. I would say that it was, a long period of time. We had a really good relationship. And then just like a lot of relationships, right, they just start to deteriorate. Things stop working, communication, just how we work together.
Financial stress.
Financial stress was a big thing, kids, all that kind of stuff. And then to make a long story short, we, just really at the end of our marriage, we had tried several times. We split up and we even got back together, tried to work it out, didn't work. And
we had a lot of coaching.
Yeah. We went through all sorts of, yeah. Nobody could say that it wasn't for lack of effort that we didn't try. But it came to this point where it was like, this has got to end, and it was really painful. And so for me, where I went to was, it's her fault. We shouldn't get a divorce. What about the kids? What about the future? My parents are divorced. Her parents are divorced. We saw how that went.
You knew how.
And, just looking at that future did not look just no matter how we looked in our relationship, that future looked pretty bleak. And in the future of being divorced, it looked really bleak. So it was
We were
like,
screwed either way.
yeah, really, that's how it felt. And so we were like, how do we continue to do this? So she really was like, you know what, we got to end this. And I was like, I don't know, but I knew it needed to end.
Yeah.
So I was holding on. And so for about 18 months, when we first separated, I was a real asshole. I mean, you know, swearing, flipping her off, you know, I mean, I tried to do as much of that disrespect behind the kids' backs. They didn't know what was going on as much, except for they knew when their mom's name or whatever would come up, I knew they could sense there was something up, and they wouldn't talk to me or say certain things. They were really cautious when they mentioned their mom. But I was really angry. I was bitter. And then there was this one moment. And so for a lot of divorcees, a lot of parents know the meeting place, right? This is the place where we meet and we drop off the kid exchange.
The kid exchange in the parking lot of.
In the parking lot,
Lowe's
right?
or Home Depot.
That's where it was. It was an abandoned Lowe's, right? So anyway, so I remember this was like one of many times where we had this exchange, and I was, in this instant, I was dropping off the boys, and I was really upset, and I did my typical F you know, flipping her off, and I peeled out. You know, and then we engage in the typical, she's like, real mature asshole, and it just, you know, and so, and of
Something
course,
like loosely quoting.
right. Yeah, exactly. And then, so I start jabbing back, and that was a pretty common thing. And I hated that. And then I remember as I was driving back to the place that I lived, and I was just really in tears because I was hurting. I was heartbroken. And I realized, I was like, I am not happy. I'm just not happy. And I really want to be happy. And then when I thought about my kids, our kids, and I thought, you know what? In reality, if I'm interested in my own self happiness, and I think people should be, right? We should be interested in our own happiness. I think most people are. And I was like, but you know what? Ultimately, my children's happiness is more important than my own. It really is. And what I realized is that because I was so angry, they couldn't enjoy themselves or have peace and happiness because I was bringing so much anger. And the other part is that other person that I'm upset with is their mother, and she's the other half of them. And so it started to just unfold in an instant where I was like, their happiness is partially dictated by mine and hers. So if I want to be happy, then I need to make sure, what do I need to do to ensure that their happiness, about their happiness, and that's their mom. And as much as I didn't want to admit it in the moment, I knew like that something needed to change. And so I called her on the phone on my way back, and in tears, and I apologized for being a jerk, for disrespecting her and dishonoring her, especially in front of our children, and not treating her the way that I said I would from the very beginning. And I told her right then and there, and I said, you know what, Rebecca, I will love you forever. I will respect you and honor you. And I have. And I gave that gift to our children. And she was awesome about it. And she reciprocated, and she took responsibility. And we just started, and then it was like, oh, where I screwed up in our relationship. And she's like, well, here's where I screwed up in our relationship. And so now all of a sudden, instead of me jabbing at her and her jabbing at me, it was like, I was responsible for
I'm responsible.
I'm responsible. I'm responsible for this. And it's like, and I love you. And I appreciate you. And one of the things I think that was kind of like started the fire was my uncle, I've shared this quote a lot. My uncle shared this really brilliant quote with me as we were going through this. And he said, the greatest love a father can show to his children is to love their mother.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that you have to be married. It just says,
or even get along.
Yeah, or give it along.
Or communicate well.
Something.
But just like basic love and respect for the fact that she's the mother of she gave birth to your children.
To my children,
Like
to our children.
I have men I've like dated or relationships I've been in like since that have so much angst towards their ex-wife. And I'm like, can you even just at least respect her for the fact that she pushed your child out of her vagina? Like, can you at least respect that?
Yeah.
And they're like,
really.
no.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Seriously.
really? Then that's the problem. If you can't at least locate that tender love to go, she labored and toiled to birth your child, and you don't know what that's like. Can you at least just respect that and love her because of that one thing? If you can only find one thing to love her for, is that she gave life to that your little heart walking around out there in the world. So that was just that one. I think that's important thing for, if we could give advice, it'd be like, you must at least respect that person for the fact that they gave you your child, who we all are going to assume everybody watching here loves your children, that you're, that you want the best life for your kids.
Yeah.
So
for sure. Right. And it was super easy to see that once we could find peace with each other, that our happiness was completely tied to that their happiness was, like I said, but then also it's like, it's so much easier for us to be on the same page. It's so much
logistically
easier.
It's like cooperation. It's obviously a lot easier if I shift from he's going to screw me over, so I'm in defense mode, to how can I support him?
Yeah.
And then how can he support me? Like there was a period of time where he had to leave and go out of state for training for like
first 2 months.
2 months. Yeah. And there was a part of me that was like, that's really unfair. I'm working full time. And then I've also got the kids, and now I don't even have every other weekend off.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, those types of resentments that can build. But I thought, no, I want Rob to thrive. I want him to thrive in his new job. I want him to be able to have the things that he wants to have as a result of having gainful employment and success in his career. So I was just like, so I'm gonna lovingly suck it up and support him, because the long-term goal is I want him to be happy.
Yeah.
I want him to be successful, because that's what makes my life work too.
Doesn't it? I mean, it's just kind of, I feel like a dumb question, but doesn't it make your life easier? Like
1,000%.
I mean, it's like, if anything, it's like, if you want to simplify your life, like have some peace with each other. It's so easy. It's so much easier. It's so much easier.
And because we don't have a parent time schedule.
No.
We've never had one.
Mm-mm.
We don't have like, oh, it's your weekend. It's my, I mean, we have in the past for like consistency's sake, and also because I'm a professional piano entertainer and I work 3 to 4 nights a week at a bar from like 9 p.m. till 1 a.m. So there were certain nights it made more sense that he just has the kids overnight, because I was working till 1 o'clock in the morning, like logistic stuff. But it's always been like, hey, I've got to travel for work. Are you good with the kids this week or this weekend? And he's like, sure. Or he's like, hey, I'm going to Mexico with my friends for this 7-day bro retreat or whatever, And I'm like, yes, I want him to have that. And so we've just really come to a point where we realize, that's in everybody's best interest, is that he's really standing for and listening for that my life works. And I'm doing the same thing for him. And we know this is rare. We know this is like weird for a lot of people to hear, but we never had narcissistic abuse. We never had a lot of the, the real hard things that I know a lot of couples deal with. Yeah, I mean, I have great co-parenting relationship with Rob. I have a whole other challenge with my daughter's dad. It's just a whole other climate, right? But it's like, given that we had a fairly average functional marriage. I mean, I don't know what other people's marriages are really like, but that like 2 mature, responsible, basic human beings, adults, can set aside whatever anger, hurt, and regret that they have, and realize that we all win when we all win. And for me, I think the biggest thing, what was hard for me, and a lot of my grievances in our marriage, but really shifted when I stopped expecting Rob to, I literally stopped. I dropped all the expectations. I just stopped all the financial expectations. I stopped the time expectations, or the bearing equal weight with the kids. Like I just like all of those things where it's like, you should be more this and you should get like, basic expectations. I literally just dropped them all. And I said, you know what? If something happened to Rob, I want to make sure that I am set up in a position that I can handle it. So I started looking at my life from that place of just total responsibility so that I was never disappointed. It was like, oh, he's going to show up and take the kids, or, oh, he's going to, contribute money towards their expenses or not. Like, it was just kind of like, okay, you're going to do whatever you're going to do. And I'm not sitting here trying to get something out of you. It's just, that's what I realized. I think a lot of women need to realize is that you cannot be dependent on another human being and be happy. Dependence breeds resentment.
Yeah.
And when you don't get the thing, that again, whether it's payments, money, equity, equal time, sharing the burden, all of that stuff, I just let it all go. And I was like, you know what, Rob's going to do whatever Rob's going to do. And I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do, but I'm going to make sure that as a woman, I'm good. Yeah. And that was really, 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 really powerful for me to set myself free. And I just chose peace. And I just chose to love and accept him just like I would love and accept any other human being in my life, and for me, that was really the turning point, was just letting Rob be Rob instead of having Rob be like disappointment waiting to happen over here, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I would say that's just, I would divorce, marriage,
we have expectations. We see it as like a needs exchange. And if I'm gonna do this and you're gonna do this, okay? Equal, you're gonna do your part, and then you're gonna provide the money. I'm gonna give you babies and sex, or whatever it is. We all have these like mutual, if they're spoken or unspoken agreements. And I just had it like, he should do this and he should show up this way and he should be this. But then I realized I didn't have those expectations of anyone else in my life. And I got along with pretty much everybody else in my life. So why not just level that playing field and grant him the autonomy that frankly he's always had. But then when you get in a relationship and you have all these expectations, it's just a setup for disappointment,
So there's a couple interesting dynamics. One is that you both went through a divorce as kids yourselves. Yeah. And
the interesting
when you saw,
we were both just graduated from high school
when our parents divorced.
Okay. So
which was a little different.
So you were like
18. We were older. Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we saw though, and maybe this is where you're going, is that we saw like my parents barely spoke for 20 years.
Like even at our wedding.
It was so awkward. When my parents were in the room, it was weird.
We're like, you guys are like, how old are they? 50, 60 years old. We're like, there's him, his mom and her spouse, and then his dad and her spouse. And Joanne and Bill are outside on the patio, just staying away from everyone. And Brent and Christy and we were just like, you guys are retarded. Like, I mean, in the truest sense of the word, like, it's just so underdeveloped and backwards. Like, you're adults. Like, can't you just get over your stuff?
Yeah. Well, and she saw her parents
through, same thing.
Through court stuff. I mean, it was awful. And so I think partly what I saw or what we saw was that I know what that's like, even as an adult child.
Right.
I know what that's like as an adult child to watch the parents who I had known my entire life until I was an adult be in the same room, be loving, be, at least what I saw.
Tolerate each other,
right? But now that then all of a sudden they go from, they can't even be in the same room and be comfortable with each other. And as a child, that sucks. It's terrible. And when going back to that example, right, that full 18 months, I realized that that's what I was doing to my children. That's what we were doing to our children.
We become our parents.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. And when we had even said before, I'm like, we'll never put our children through that. Never will we do that to our children. They don't deserve it.
We had, and I don't know if, okay, I'm just going to say this.
Okay,
but we about 2 years into our marriage, we had a separation. We had some stuff go down that we were like, and I think all the work and the coaching and the stuff that we did really made our marriage last as long as it did. And we had children. And I mean, I knew from the moment I met Rob, well, maybe our second or third date, I knew this guy was going to be a great dad. Like that was when I like fell in love with him, was I saw him wrestling with his little nieces and nephews, or his a little tiny bush. He was like, what, 1 or something when we met, Allie. And yet it's his 3 little nephews. And I saw him playing with them, and I was like, I so want to have babies with you. Like, I just knew it was that, it was that maternal instinct, that Mormon woman, like maternal instinct. Right. And so I always knew that, but 2 years into our marriage, when we had this like rough, stuff go down, and then we reconciled, obviously, we had conversations about that. Like if we ever got divorced, we would be next door neighbors.
Yeah.
We would never put our kids through that. And it's kind of interesting because that's exactly.
So you guys had that
now.
conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We did when we were married, because we saw the bullshit that our parents were doing, and just the pain. And my dad's been married 3 times. My mom's never remarried since my parents divorced. And then, this is always politics and just strain and all of that stuff. And we were just like, it's just like so dumb, like just so stupid to do that to a family.
It's so bankrupt.
Yeah,
seriously, it's
great. You get to be right.
Yay.
Okay, you win. You're right. But everybody's suffering.
Everybody does.
So,
it's like mom and dad both suffer and kids suffer with them. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no,
and
it's like honestly, for the kids, it's like we in the program we called it cheese grating the heart, like a cheese grater, like grinding on their heart when you see a parent treat another parent badly or say something negative about them at all in any way. It's like just grating it. I mean, it's and they don't always see it that way, but it really is. But something else that stuck out was so in week 2 of our program, it's an 8-week program, it's 60 days. We talk about how to rid yourself of all dysfunction so that you can then give your kids a functional life in a dysfunctional setup where it's not a complete family anymore. In a sense of like, mom and dad and kids and stuff. And so, but I want to ask Rebecca a question, because when Rob called after, he was being a jerk in that one moment where, he flipped you off in the parking lot or whatever, Lowe's, abandoned Lowe's, where, and he's going off, and then he calls and he's like, hey, I'm sorry. So for him, he had a moment where he realized maybe part of him was like, dude, I am now heading down the path that I just saw my parents do at some point and not even be comfortable. And I hate that. And maybe that hit with a bunch of other thresholds. But what was it for you that said, hey, this time it's real and sincere? Because I'm sure he's called and apologized before in certain situations. And you have even parents after divorce will have something and then they're like, oh, sorry. But usually, we don't know what was it exactly where you're like, hey, this is real, this is sincere. And then it shifted, because in week 2 of our program for ridding of dysfunction, one of the exercises we do is how to take expectation and completely not just let it go, which is what you did, but replace it with appreciation, where you're literally 100% letting go of anything you expect and you're just grateful.
Yeah.
Right. I'm grateful that he had to go out of state for 2 months, even though, that's good. Like it's going to help him in his career, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that exact thought, but what was it where you realized, dude, this is real? Like he's sincerely really wanting to shift and he's hit threshold, and then the shift to letting go of expectation and perhaps replacing with appreciation, which sounds like what you did.
Yeah. Well, and Jeremiah, I have to say, before I answer that question, I really love what you're doing. With your that's why we're like, how can we support you? Because we've talked about, we're like, could we teach people to create this? And then we're like, oh my gosh, our friend Jeremiah, who I've known since high school, is doing this, and you've triumphed over even shittier situations than we had, so like if you can do it, then we just know everybody else can.
You're just the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Hey, I just say, we're going to get you to an Olympian level. You probably won't go through most of this. But if you do, you'll know exactly what to do. Or if you have someone that you'll know how to get them through. That's kind of the approach. But
so I just want to say, I think it's just so important, because there are that no matter what level of dysfunction, there are people who have triumphed over it. And if one person can do it, then there is a way. Yeah. So I love that you are unpacking that whole thing and standing for that there is a way. I think it's very, very important.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to answer your question, because again, as I was thinking about that, I was like, I don't know how we kind of like did it, but we didn't really know what we were doing. I just shifted and he said, I'm sorry, but what I remember, and I don't know what the timeline was of this, but I remember for me, I calibrate on behavior. People can say all kinds of things. People can say, I'm going to do this for you, or I'm going to stop doing this, or I'm going to be this, or I'm going to honor you, or whatever. And I say, okay, I heard what you said, but now I'm watching to see if the behavior changes. Otherwise, talk is cheap, right? We break our promises all the time. And I do remember being in my condo, and usually I think he would drop the boys off like in the carport, and they would just come up. They were old enough. They were like what, 4 and 6 when we split.
So they were,
So they were, 6 and 8. So they were able to like, go bye, love you boys, and then they just run up the sidewalk and into the house. But I remember like that he came to the door, and he came inside. And he stood, I was like, do you want to come in? And he just stood like within the door, closed the door. He was just, but it was like this respect of like, this isn't my home, and I'm not just going to go kick back and open the fridge, like that he respected. This was my home with our children. And then I also remember that he showed up on Mother's Day with a plant and a card. And he said, thank you for being the mother of my children. And it was like, replacing that expectation with gratitude, like you just said, where he just started doing that and then gave me the opportunity to reciprocate, as well. And I remember like one of the first times that we were both at one of our kids' school functions or something like, like some assembly or elementary school thing. And I remember that he was sitting there, and normally it was like him and then like grandma and strangers and then me, or, whatever. We just sat next to each other. And it was kind of like, is this
weird at first,
is this dog going to bite me? Is this, but just that we could kind of rebuild that trust, but gratitude was really the bridge. Gratitude and respect and genuine concern for the other person's welfare. So I feel like that was what made it real for me. Is I just really do remember getting that card and that plant. Normally it was like, oh, here's something from the boys. You'd have the boys make a card and like some candy bar or something, Mother's Day, which I thought was great. But because I always would make sure the boys would give their dad a gift on his birthday and things like that, so it was kind of through the kids. But when I got this plant and this card from him expressing his gratitude for being the mother of his children, it was like, okay, like that's different. That's a shift in the climate altogether, and just made it a lot more safe to start building that trust, I think. I don't know, was there anything else you can think of that?
No, I mean,
it's so weird. It seems like such a distant memory.
Yeah, I mean, it really does, like, just because it was, and but it was gradual. And I remember it was weird, and it was hard at first to go into her home, especially when it's our children and I'm not really welcome there.
I think I had a boyfriend at the time too, or something that was there a lot, and didn't really want them to be, just didn't want that, so.
Yeah. And, but like she said, right. And I knew even when I called her that it was going to take some time. And like she said, it's a demonstration on my part in how I talk to her, how I interact with her, how I interact with our children about her, and just that whole world, so that when we're together, even, in the same room or even behind her back, like, how am I operating? Like, one of the things that I didn't say is that, and I think this is one of the things that happens probably in every divorce situation, is that I go to my people and I gossip about her.
Same.
Right. And then, so what I started to do, and everybody knows to this day, right, I went back to those people and systematically just cleaned that up with them. You know what? I was mean and I was unfair because I was hurt and I was sad. but Rebecca is the mother of my children and I love her and I will forevermore. And if you ever hear me say something negative about her, just please remind me about this conversation and my commitment to our children. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the things, because it's like when the people in our lives, right, they hear what we say and they hear it. And then our behavior is reinforced because they keep hearing or seeing how we operate. So if I now tell them some different other story about how I'm going to be with Rebecca and apologizing to them that I gossiped about her, now all of a sudden they can hear something different.
Instead of it's like icing on dog crap doesn't make a pie. It's just icing hiding crap.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You actually have to bake a cake and you have to go back and say, I was full of shit. I don't know. Yeah. Sorry if we can't swear on this, but I was full of crap. I was really just attacking her because I was hurt and I realized that there's an impact with that. I don't want that anymore. So here's now what I'm creating, and please relate to me as this new man that's committed to honoring his ex-wife.
Yeah.
And our friends are all, our mutual friends and his friends and stuff, we've all participated extensively in landmark education, which I think is such a powerful tool for I wish everybody on the planet would just do it, because it's just really like the basic self-development stuff that really everybody should have. And so a lot of people in our community and in our lives, we're very supportive of people making those types of transformations and having conversations that empower people instead of, the gossip and all that. But there's another thing just remembered. I have these best little memories of Ryan, who we used to call Winnie. So we fought about his name. His name is Ryan Winford. And he wanted to name him Winford after his beloved grandfather. And I was like, we're not going to name our kid Winford. Like, that's just nerdy. I don't know, like whatever, old school antique name. And I always loved the name Ryan. And I thought whether it was a boy or a girl that popped out, we were going to name him or her Ryan. But he's like, I really want Winford. I said, that's Ryan. And middle name is Winford. And he's always called him Win. And I've always called him Ryan. So my family calls him Ryan. His family calls him Win. And it's just funny. But we just called him Little Winnie when he was a kid, because he was just an adorable little fireball. But I remember he and Sean started opening my car door for me. And they were, 6 and 8 years old. They would almost fight over it. No, mom, wait, mom. We'd pull up from the grocery store. Wait, mom, stay right there, mom. And Beautiful. I would sit there, and Ryan would get out of the car and he would open the door for me. And Sean would run up the stairs and he would open the door for me. And I just remember at some point having a conversation with Rob where he realized, I'm modeling for my boys how they will treat their future wives, and women in general. And I want to model for them, not be a hypocrite, treat your woman nicely. Your mom's a bitch, that doesn't work. Right.
Or if you're ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, you don't treat them well, but the woman you're in a relationship with, you do. Right. Doesn't make any sense.
I remember just those sweet little gestures where they were being very chivalrous. They were being just these little polite men. And I was like, are you teaching that to them? And he was like, yes, because I realized they're great men in training, and they are going to see our relationship and model that for their future relationship. So I think it became even more important, Jeremiah, like, especially in the wake of a divorce, when the default is so easy to just be crappy with each other.
Yeah.
But that you actually do need to overcome the gap, the disparity that's created by, like, I love this person, but we're not married anymore. Or I respect this person, but we're not married. That can create a lot of confusion for kids. Like, you can't, I really do think at some level that's confusing for people, because they're like, well, even today, I'm single, Rob's single. People are like, why don't you guys just get back together? We're like, there's a reason we got divorced, and this is working
several times.
Totally.
So just because we love and respect each other as partners and co-parents doesn't mean that we should make our relationship look like a marriage. Like, that had its own level of complexity and
maturity.
So but again, just kind of bridging that gap of, like, you can show love and respect for the person that is your former spouse, that is the parent of your children, but trying even harder to model decency in that relationship, I think, is just really, really important. And Rob's over here all the time. Rob's moved and got a condo right down to the bottom of our street. He is all but sleeps here. Like he's here in the morning, fixing breakfast. He's here at night. He helps with my daughter. He was the first person besides her dad that found out I was pregnant. You know, that was, again, was a whole other ball of wax, you know, but I met this guy. I got pregnant 2 months into the relationship. Was not like this ideal. I mean, I knew pretty quickly, and I was like, oh, like I wanted this baby, but maybe this wasn't the best relationship choice, you know, and kind of had to like hold it all together, you know. But I remember texting Rob and saying, you know, I'm pregnant. And he said,
she was really scared.
Yeah,
I'm so scared to tell you.
I'm scared, you know. And he said, you know, I know that you always wanted to have more kids, and that wasn't really in the cards for us. And I'm excited for you for this opportunity. And I know how much important it is to you. And I know it's going to change our family dynamic, but I support you and I'm here for you. And it was like, to me, that's like the best kind of love is I'm like, I feel like I have partnership now with Rob that I've never had with another human being. Romantic. And we never had, I don't think, this real level of partnership in our marriage because it was laced with unmet expectations.
Yeah.
And disappointment. But it's like, look, you do you, I do me. You know, this summer and last summer, I was gone for 4 or 5 weeks doing this training for, you know, the work that I do. I have a full-time nanny for the baby, you know, but Rob is here with the boy. Like I was gone for a month, and I've got a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and you know, or they were 10, 12, and 2 at the time. And it was seamless. It was like, yes, Rebecca, we've got your back. And just having that team that allows me to live my life and that he can live his life too. And we've really got each other's backs. It's just I just don't think I have that level of partnership with anybody else. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that we should be married either.
It doesn't. Yeah.
You know,
we're good, just good
yeah,
partners.
good partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in week 3, and sometimes it's week 4, I mix it around a little bit with our modules, but we talk about 2 things. One is shifting from working through the kids to working with each other directly.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. And so what I'm hoping is, I think I've found people who are living a bunch of the things that we teach, but didn't necessarily have a process. And so I've created the whole process so that anyone can do this. And this is beautiful because I love discovering it along the way. And so that was one piece. And when he shifted from giving it to you directly, Mother's Day, you know, boom. And it wasn't, hey guys, give this to her. Then the thing shifted with the kids where he's not like, hey, do this, pass this message. But all of a sudden they're like, wait, I'm going to open the door. Right. And all of a sudden this new process is created where instead of pushing it through them and they're not thinking for themselves, you push it with each other and they get to completely think for themselves and decide what they think is the best move or what they think is the best service or the best message to deliver. So that's one thing I think is really cool. And then the other thing is a question now for both of you. But in the last part of ridding yourself of dysfunction, we have an exercise that's really intense. And the title is Divorce the Story and Marry the Truth.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gone through this divorce or spousal loss. Some people have lost a spouse to death, or they're just missing, which also happens, or they're 100 million% checked out. And it's like, they're not even there anyway, maybe just in body sometimes every once in a while. But maybe talk about what are some of the things personally that you had to divorce from that was the story. Oh, it didn't work out because of this or this or this. And what were the truths that you grabbed onto? You've mentioned on some of them already that really freed this relationship up to be a really powerful partnership. And people sometimes confuse that. Oh, best friends should get married. Well, no, not really. Actually, that's a great roommate. Right? Yeah. But that's not, that's a different level for intimacy.
Yeah.
Right. And so what are some of the things that you divorce, and you've mentioned some of them, but I just want to capture this for the audience. Like, what are some of the things that you literally let go of? Mm-hmm. Like maybe some examples of some expectations, or literally a story you kept telling yourself, well, he's a dick because of this and this and this, and she's, you know, a spaz because blah, blah. But you literally just let go of it. And you're like, you know what? That's bullshit. Like, here's the truth. The truth is, and then both of you did this individually as I watched. but you both started speaking truth about yourself.
Yeah.
Actually, I did this. Actually, and then you talked about ownership. But then what was beautiful is on the letting go of expectation and replacing with appreciation, then you spoke truth on appreciation. So I don't know if you guys both noticed that you did that, but you both spoke truth about yourself and then spoke truth about the appreciation of the other in the partnership.
I think like two things pop into my head. Number one was, and I just remember this because I'm also an artist and I do art with words, and it's part of my therapy, it's part of one of my self-care practices. And I remember creating this, I call them truth cards. And it's just, almost like your own little, like a card, I'll paint it, I'll put words and stuff on it, And I remember this one that I've made that says, I choose peace. And I had that on the visor of my windshield. And it was like, no matter what he throws at me, I choose peace. And I think the truth I uncovered was no one but me is responsible for my life, for my emotional state, and for my experiences. I am 100% responsible. He can do whatever he does, but just like a good baseball player can hit any ball that's thrown at them, instead of, no, you got to throw it exactly like this so I can hit it, and I think relationships become a lot like, I need you to be this way so that I can be happier, so that I'm not pissed off all day. I just remember my dad saying, it seems like Rob wins when he knocks you off center, Rebecca. Like you let him just knock you off center all the time. So why not just relocate yourself in a way that you just become unmessable with, so for me, it was just choosing peace and letting the past be the past. It's over. It's over. There's nothing I can do about it. No. It is what it was. I can't even change what I had for breakfast this morning. Like that's how gone the past is, right? And just like letting it it's over and I choose peace no matter what. So I think those are some fundamental, shifts for me, was just letting go of that. Anyone else is responsible for my experience of my life, and becoming a lot more emotionally resilient and finding the resources in me and healing the wounds in me. The other thing too, and I have to just speak to this because it really was culturally ingrained in us, that the man is supposed to go out and work and bring home the bacon, and the woman is supposed to stay home and have the babies and cook and clean. Now, I think we almost never had that in our relationship. It was complete role reversal because Rob always, and I know this from the beginning, he said, I want to homeschool our kids. I'd love to be a stay-at-home dad. I hope we have a child with special needs. I mean, like he is like such this dad heart, because his dad worked from sun up from sundown, was never there, a good provider, but he was like, but I just want my dad. And so oddly enough, we didn't really choose that, but we had so much pain caused by this belief that the man is supposed to be the breadwinner. Because I think for a good portion of our marriage, I was, and I resented the shit out of him. I was like, this isn't my job. You're supposed to do this. And he's like, but you're really good at it. And I really love being home with the kids. And you don't necessarily super love being home with the kids. I'm not a good stay-at-home mom. Yeah. I will say I'm like type A alpha female, and I'm sure you guys can't get that at all about me. Right. But it was just the belief that this is the traditional man role and this is the traditional female role that just created so much pain in our marriage. And that was a massive unfulfilled expectation. I felt like, why are you heaping all this burden on me? And it's like, how come I can't feel like I'm a man around, you're just drive. And I can't ever, keep up with your masculinity, Rebecca. It was just this power balance and that got flip-flopped. And in hindsight, I just think, man, had we had the ability to destroy that unconscious filter and really choose for ourselves that this is how we're going to write our lives, that maybe he's best in the role of caretaker of the children and doing his side interests and passions and jobs and hobbies and endeavors. I mean, he's got this great entrepreneur brain, and like, I'm really just driven in business and driven to succeed. And you know, so that
Well,
that was like the telling the truth. It was like,
yeah.
Rob is going to be the way Rob is, and I'm going to be the way
Yeah.
that I am. And we're not going to try and hold each other down or resent each other for that
Yeah.
anymore.
Well,
Does that make sense?
yeah, no,
I don't
yeah,
know,
that makes sense. Well, so and I would say also, just to add to that, is I just feel like, regardless of cultural and religious expectations, that's like almost a human expectation, right? That the men are going to provide and the women are going to raise the children. When I'm and it seems like an either or kind of a thing, when in my world, like from a young age, like she was saying, like just watching my parents, both of my parents worked, they weren't around a lot. And she's right, my dad was gone, you know, sun up to sundown, frequently. And so what I ideally would have created is a more balanced relationship between mom and dad, husband and wife, where, because I really think it's important, like, to have dad at home frequently with those children, and then mom at home frequently with the children, but also men out there earning and providing, and moms and women out there earning and providing. I really believe that's more of a balance, because and Rebecca can speak 100% to this, is, you know, and not to go down this road, but her mom was married to her dad for 28 years, stay-at-home mom, raised 9 children. They divorced, and what does she have?
9 kids, no work experience, no
None.
education,
None.
totally still dependent, you know, on my dad,
Right?
at age 50 or
Yeah.
whenever they got divorced. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
hard,
That's tough.
it's a hard model we live in.
Yeah, it is. The other thing is that, and we've talked to and interacted with many people either going through a divorce or have gone through a divorce, where that has been their dynamic, and the woman, usually it's the woman, the mom, doesn't have any skills. They
She's
don't
screwed over.
Now she's still relying upon her ex-husband, whether or not he's going to give her enough money to provide for herself, whether it's alimony or child support or whatever. And so, and like what Rebecca was saying, I think she hit the nail on the head, where she was like, how can I be empowered to provide for myself and my children and my family? And I say the same thing.
And still be a present parent.
Yes, exactly.
It's like a partnership versus expectation.
Yeah.
It's like, here's how we're gonna, make this work together.
And I would even say that is a more accurate depiction of what masculine feminine balance would be and should be. And I think that we have that more now than we've ever had before, is that masculine feminine balance. You know, I'm like, and it's probably almost beneficial that we aren't married, because she can pursue her thing, and I don't have an expectation. And in fact, and she'll tell you this, it's like, I'm always like, Rebecca, you're a badass. You are an awesome woman. You know, she's got pictures of Wonder Woman all over the place. And she's amazing. And yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Right. So what I'm saying is, it's like, and it seriously is in my best interest to empower what it is that she's up to. It is in my best interest, because because she's happy pursuing that, and she could say the same to me.
I always felt in our marriage that the more successful I was in business and finances and all of that stuff, the more it invalidated him. I felt like my success would emasculate him. I mean, even honestly, until like recently, I had to like work through that me being successful in the world somehow is going to hurt him, because that wasn't his strength. That wasn't, we, you know what I mean? Like, it was just different. It's just like, there's so many couples out there where like the woman's a surgeon and he's a school teacher, so they're just different salary levels.
That's all
you know what I mean? It's like really all that it is. But I felt for so long that I needed to keep a lid on what I was doing, because I don't want him to feel like less of a man. And that's so ridiculous. So now we just don't have that expectation anymore, and I can rock and he can do whatever he wants. And it's not like he has to prove it to me. It's not like I have to overcome, his weaknesses or, whatever, those types of things. It's just, we're just free to be each other. So I don't even know if we answered your question.
I think we went way off track.
Absolutely. Don't worry, you're doing great. And it's interesting, because you have this level of success that's tied to pain until recently, when you're able to separate. And that's what we want. We don't necessarily we're not advocating for divorce, but we are advocating to divorce the stories, because we just keep playing them over and over and over. Here's why it didn't work out. It's she's an a-hole and he's a dick, you know, and all this stuff. And it's just like, like that's not serving anybody. And once you guys let go of it, what's beautiful is you're able to completely custom create based on the truth that you'd both found inside. And we have two things that are really cool in week 2. It's called Jeremiah's open heart surgery for pain and suffering. And what I essentially show people how to do is take their heart, because when something violent or aggressive or intense happens to you, the heart pops open and then locks it in.
Yeah.
And the only way to get it out is to do the same thing, like yell or scream or shout or punch something, and it pops out like this out of the bottom. But what we show you how to do is how to open it so that it just flows right through and it never gets trapped. And it's almost like they're like, you're an F and da-da-da-da, and they're just going off, and you're like, oh yeah, I feel a discomfort of what they're saying and all the bad negative energy, and it just goes like this and flows right out.
Yeah.
And it's really tremendous. And so you guys are hitting on that, which is beautiful. And also even that recent discovery, you know, of saying, hey, you know what? It's okay to be successful. It's actually okay to be young and successful. If we got any kids out there that are watching who've gone through this, like it's okay to be young and successful. And I just want to touch on one other piece. In week 6, we actually teach you how to increase your income. It's not a multi-level marketing or any kind of this. It's like, I show you how to build a company from scratch, or how to tap into your most powerful resources and experience and all that stuff. And literally, because you're going to need money. Like when this happens, you have to have money. And it's almost to a point now where it's like, you almost can't even stay in your kid's life if you don't make enough or a certain amount. And that's starting to become the case, which is unfortunate, but so we do that too. But Rob, did you have anything that you wanted to come on for you, of anything that you were able to let go of story of that really kind of helped you embrace what you guys have now?
So part of it is that to some degree, it doesn't even occur to me anymore, right? It just has been like, it's all like all the story is just invalid anyway, right? Whether she's supportive or not. That was one of my things, right? Oh, she doesn't support me. But it was like, no, in reality, it was like, no, she supported me all the time. But again, it's like, it doesn't always look, that's the expectation, right? She didn't support me the way that I think she should have, right? It just looked the way that it looked, and that was it, right? It's the same thing it's almost like love languages, right?
Yeah, you guys all know 5 love languages.
Yeah.
So it's like, for me, I'm like, of course I supported you. I worked, I built a company, I provided for us financially a lot. I gave birth to our children. And he's like, yeah, but you don't touch me enough. You don't want to have sex, or, like what, like those. And I was like, I'm freaking exhausted. I'm over here doing all these things. And he's like, but you're not meeting these needs. And, we don't connect that way, but it doesn't mean that the other person's efforts aren't valid just because you don't recognize them in your language, so.
Yeah.
Say that one more time. It doesn't mean what?
It doesn't mean it's invalid just because you don't recognize it. It's not in your language. Love is expressed in a lot of ways. And maybe one person's way of expressing love is totally backwards and upside down for you, and you never see it, but it's your job to be the Pepper Potts and interpret it and make it, well, Iron Man reference there, sorry. But to like really make it receive the message that's underneath the intention, even though the delivery of it might be off, And I want to just real quick backtrack to something you said, Jeremiah. I am not an advocate of divorce at all. Like, that was one of the most painful things we have ever done.
Yeah, for sure.
And I look back and I do regret it. I do regret in many ways. I regret that I didn't dig just a little bit deeper, or just be patient, or just go through the storms of year 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 of most people's marriages. Like, I look back and I think our whole lives would be different had I just been a little bit more patient, had I just found a way to let go of those expectations while we were married, had I been willing to say, you know what, this is too hard. Let's just go live in my mom's basement, but I was too prideful. I was too prideful and wanting to keep up with appearances and keep up with, like, you're supposed to buy me an Escalade and a house in Draper, Utah. And we're supposed to, like all these expectations that I just couldn't undo for myself, I really, as being 100% responsible, is what destroyed our marriage. And had I been able to back up and just calm down a little bit and swallow my pride and just look at things differently, I think that we would have had a different script. Now, that being said, we are where we are and we choose that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And it's not like, oh, Rob, let's get back together. It's like, no, it's just, this is where we are and this is good. And I love you and move on. And he loves me and move on, that we get to, we recognize it is very rare. And I don't want people listening to have this idea that like, hey, it's okay. Things are hard. Just go ahead and get divorced and you can work it out like Rebecca and Rob.
Yep.
Like there is massive pain here.
Yeah, there is.
And
it takes a lot more effort. Sure.
Yeah. And pain for our children that we're now just starting to, I think, see and deal with and start to unravel. The kids always pay the price. Do everything you can to work it out, and if you just can't work it out and divorce is your choice, then have the best divorce that you can have.
Seriously.
So I just really want to be clear, on that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And also what's beautiful is that you've been able to leverage what we want in our program. Is we want you to leverage intense joy and intense growth from what has happened.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn the lesson, like you got it, you learned the lesson and it was really painful. And it's like, hey, like we don't want this to happen to anyone. We don't want to go through it again. But if you don't learn the lesson, it will keep happening and it will keep getting harder and harder and harder and harder until you're on your knees. Sometimes that's not enough. I've been face down on the floor, bawling, pleading from a creator's perspective, like, please, what else do I have to do? Nothing is working.
Yep.
Why isn't this? And it's like, this is like really hard. And of course we don't advocate it, but what we do advocate is what you guys are doing now. And that's like leveraging it to intense joy, leveraging it to intense growth. And something really beautiful that you guys had both mentioned was, hey, like hearing the real message from the people. And what I want to shift a little bit now of talking about doing that with our kids, like hearing the real message with the kids. And you guys don't know I'm going to bring this up right now, but I saw you guys did something last week or the week before, whatever. And you were both talking and then your kids are in the background and you were talking about the co-parenting and stuff you've set up, which is beautiful. And then one of you, you're like, what do you guys think about the co-parenting relationship that we set up?
We asked the kids.
Yeah. And one's like, oh, blah, blah, whatever, just being a kid. But the other one was like, he was kind of sitting more in the middle and hair to here. And then he's like,
no shirt on.
It's amazing. Like, it's so cool. It's like, it's an incredible experience to have a kid say, like, mom and dad got divorced, but everything is really great. And I'm getting loved from all these different areas. And they're making it like so easy for me.
Yeah.
That's a win. That's a huge win. And that's what we do advocate for. So talk about just for a minute, the impact it's having on your kids, what kind of things they're opening up and sharing with you about, and the shift you saw in them once you guys, Rob says, hey, look, I can't treat you like this anymore. Oh, here's Mother's Day. And really seriously, thank you. And then you say, hey, I've been doing this and this, let me let go of that and let me replace it with appreciation. And then just kind of talk about from the kids' perspective for a minute. And we can do another thing later and have even them comment if you want. Like,
totally.
But
yeah.
I think we should talk about there was a story that we read at some point during our marriage where there was a couple in France or something that had divorced and the judge awarded the house to the children. And we were like, oh, so the parents were the ones that had to pack up and shuffle around and have their own apartments. And then, on their parent time, they would leave, and then the other parent would come to the house. And
so the
kids aren't being shuffled around.
They
all
have
the
the
time.
same space all the time. And we talked about it and we were like, that actually makes so much sense because, and the reason it makes so much sense.
We're the ones that should be.
Yes, exactly. Because it's not
between,
it's not the kids. It's not the kids' fault that the parents are divorced. They're so innocent. And so
it's our failure.
Seriously. So that made so much sense. And even for many years into our divorce, right? It was like my goal and my intention was like, how close can I move to my children? How close can I get to them? And I moved around, quite a few different places.
We were on opposite ends
Yeah.
of it. I mean, he was 30, 45 minutes
Yeah,
away. So that's why there's a lot of driving.
Yeah. And it sucked.
All that stuff.
It was terrible. Right. And then they have all their stuff at mom's house and they have stuff at my
And
house.
I'd be like, where are all your clothes? Oh, they're at dad's. I'm like,
the
God,
underwears,
like
the
he's got no
socks,
socks, his
like,
shoes, his backpack. I mean, there's constant stress on the kids.
Yeah, seriously. And then they have to pack a whole freaking suitcase in order to go back and forth. It's like, okay, the closer I can get, the better. And then what was awesome was, and one of the things, just kind of going back to about the impact on children, is like, one of the things I think is important to mention is that when I had that initial conversation with Rebecca to just restore our relationship, as I said something second to the children. I apologized and took ownership for them, for their sake, so they could see me, and again, modeling, that they could see their dad going, I was a jerk and this is how I'm making up for it. And then, so they've seen over and over and over and over and over my continuous and constant love, appreciation, respect, and honor for her, always and forever. And they know that. And there's no doubt in their mind. And I think that's super important. And so there came this point. So I got into a relationship, and I'm just going to digress here for a second, but this is really important, is when I had seen that whole thing about being happy, one of the things that I realized is that one day Rebecca would be in a relationship and one day I would be in a relationship. And it was in my best interest to make sure that I had a good relationship for whoever that guy was. And it was her best interest to know her, the woman in my my relationship. Right.
Yeah.
And, because we were going to be in each other's lives. Right.
Like,
and
it's never going to work.
No.
If my new husband is a jerk to Rob and like, okay, great. Now we've just compounded the problem.
Totally. And that happens all the time.
It's like, oh, I can't stand your ex-wife, or I can't stand your new girlfriend, or you're like,
yeah.
I remember, maybe you're going to tell this part, but I remember when he got in a relationship with he was in how long were you with Charlie? 4 years. They recently ended their relationship, but for 4 years with this beautiful woman, I love and adore her. Massive respect for her. I love who she is for Rob. But I remember we had a rule. We don't introduce our kids to any new romantic love interest until we've been dating steadily for 90 days.
Just called it the 90-day rule.
I think you can tell within 90 days if a thing is going to launch or fail to launch, So he'd been dating her for a while. And then he said, I want you to meet her. And this was before the kids met her. And we met at a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
I got to sit there. I actually wrote a journal entry about it. I should pull it up and read it. But I got to sit there. Rob and I were just sitting in this coffee shop, blah, blah, blah. And in walks this beautiful, just beautiful woman. And I was so honored that, first of all, he would pick such a beautiful woman, because I felt like that was a reflection of his taste in women, but that he got up to greet her, and I saw them like hug, and he gave her a kiss. And I was like, I want him to be loved like that. Yeah. And she and I got to talk. And even to this day, it's like our kids go to the same school. We were next door. We had a twin home up until recently when I purchased this home, where I lived on one side with our boys and my little girl. And then he and his girlfriend and her 3 kids lived on the other side. We literally shared, we had a wall between us. We'd run back and forth. The kids would run back and forth. We'd all help with all the kids. They helped with the baby, which was massively helpful, because, if I needed to do, as a single woman with the baby, you can't do anything unless you have a babysitter. So it was like nice. Literally couldn't even go to the grocery store or to the gym or to yoga or to something like that. I was like, can somebody please watch Tiger Lily? And it was like, there was always adults on deck. Yeah, sure. She's just sleeping. Here's the baby monitor. Yeah. Next door, like easy stuff, So we had this beautiful community of adults that all cared about the kids in our lives, and that we supported, each other. So yeah. I think that's, anyway, I didn't mean to hijack.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, it's good. And that's, and that goes back to what I was saying is like, well, even with my relationship with Charlie, right? And I told her in the very beginning, and it was important to me that she knows that Rebecca is in my life. She is the mother of my children. And it's important to me that you have a good relationship with her, or this will not work. Our relationship is over. And then I said the same thing to her. I was like, look, you need to have a good relation, like a really great relationship with the father of your children. You have to. It's imperative. I won't tolerate it because it's going to impact your children, and that will impact our relationship. And I want the
for
greatest.
his girlfriend,
Yeah.
because she and her ex-husband were like crazy hard stuff.
They had
going
their
on.
home thing, right?
And he was like, "You guys need to work your stuff out because that's going to impact, you know, him and her."
What we've got.
You know, and then the relationship I was in with my daughter's dad for a couple of years until that ended, he had massive warfare going on with his ex-wife, and it massively impacted us. And I was like, you have got to work that out. I'm not going to live this way. I've got a great thing here. I know it's possible. You've got to work that stuff out.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a litmus test for me now, because
for sure. Absolutely. 100%.
I date a guy and I'm like, how's your relationship with your ex-wife? And he's like, oh, I can't freaking stand her. I'm like, bye. I'm not going to, you know, are you willing to work on it? If you're not, this is never going to work, because first and foremost, I have a family with this man. That is criteria. And it has to work for everybody.
So just to put it into perspective, right? So if a woman comes to me and we're dating and I say, I have a really amazing relationship with my ex-wife, I mean, isn't that just a demonstration of, if it doesn't work out here, that we're still going to have a really good relationship, and that I'm not going to,
she's not going to be the next victim.
She's not going to be the next victim, right? Anyway, so that's just that whole world of it, right? And she talked about the duplex, or the twin home that we lived in. When that became available, I saw in an instant that that's what I wanted to do.
Actually, when I moved into that twin home, somebody was on the other side, and I asked the landlord, when do they vacate? I said, my ex-husband and his girlfriend needed to move in there. He was like, is that a good thing? I'm like, yes, you know, and we literally lobbied for that for like 6 months. He's like, they're vacant. I'm like, okay, get Rob's application. Like, we made that sucker happen.
He said to me, the landlord, he said to me, he took me like him a week to approve me or us. And then I was like, what other questions do you have? And he said, you know, I've been talking to a lot of people, and I'm just like, is it really a good idea that exes live on the other side?
And I'm the landlord.
Like, and I'm the landlord. I have to, like, I don't want cops here. And I looked at him and I said, because that was so foreign to me, because our relationship's been awesome for so many years. And I looked at him and I said, is that really your concern? He was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I didn't even consider that was your concern. I thought it was something else. Because our relationship is so great, right? And part of the reason for me in as dad, the primary reason that I chose that is what I wanted to do, is so our children had one freaking room.
Their own bedroom.
Not
two.
One bed, one room, one closet, all their toys, all their stuff in one place. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And they don't have to.
They don't have to go back and forth. So, but it was great because she had her side and I had mine. So we each had our own privacy. It was great. It was such a great setup. And I was really angry when you moved.
I know, he was really hard on him. I
was for sure disappointed.
I only moved like 4 minutes away. It's like literally the same block neighborhood, but he was like, but it's like, you're not next door to me anymore. So when he and Charlie ended their relationship, she stayed in the condo, and then he just got another, place that's right down the street. I've never even been there. He's here all the time because this is where the kids live. And even to the point where I was like, Rob, I could finish the basement and rent it to you. Like, we're that functional. But again, the point is, like, we go back to that French example, was our kids live here.
They live here.
And, even when I was out of town for a month, Rob, there were times where he was here, he'd stay overnight, he'd stay on the couch, or he'd, guest bedroom or something like that, where it was just like, he's welcome here. He's a key to my house. He knows the alarm code. This is where the kids live. Yeah. And he's literally walks in every morning. Hi guys. Like,
that's literally how I want it.
Yeah, it's great.
I want them to have their space, and I will come and go.
I don't think they even know how good they have
it. They don't.
But that's the point.
We're going to do a follow-up and light them up a little bit. We'll do something.
Yeah, we should put those little monkeys here. But like, as a side benefit too, though, like, so I had a daughter with another man, right? And he's not in our life. And I love that Rob walks in the house, and Tiger Lily, who's barely 3, hi, Wob, you know, like I love Wobby, you know, like she knows that this is her brother's dad, and he wrestles with her, he plays with her, he feeds her, he helps the boys care for their little sister. He's there to help put her to bed when I have to leave and go do a show and stuff like that. Like that, like what a beautiful thing that, you know, that she is now in a position where I am her primary parent, and we don't know what that's going to look like really with her dad moving forward, but that she has the presence of a man who is a father figure, who's consistent in her life, and that she gets that love and affection and adoration. And that's like, we just love our kids. Like we all just want the best for our kids. And I feel like it just continues to be a ripple effect of awesomeness that, I mean, he's even got contractors over at my house getting bids on things. And it's so they walk in and Rob's like, yeah, I'm trying to do an energy efficiency test on your house. And the guy's like, oh, this is your home? He's like, no, this is my ex-wife's home.
This is the situation.
I'm like, oh no, it's actually my ex-husband is saying, let me get him in here to talk to you. Yeah. And people are just like,
what?
This is so weird. But I'm like, but is it?
It's actually like, it's because we hear this all the time. It's so weird. Or just this, you know, what you guys are doing. And we're like,
is it?
You know, is it really? It's actually more weird that the person that you say that you loved and married, or you know, or maybe didn't marry, right? or that you had that kind of a relationship, you had a relationship with, and you did have a love for that person, and now it's gone just because you're not together. Is just, I think that's part of the constant reinforcement that our society gives, that normal is people have to be at odds.
Fighting, divorce is bad.
And separation. You have to have this, if she's with mom, she cannot talk with you. Yeah. You know, and there's this huge separation, but there's no such thing in life.
And it doesn't have to be that way. And in fact, because we have a good relationship, it means that we can be on the same page. It doesn't mean I'm like, what's going on at Rebecca's house? Is everything okay? And do I feel like my kids have to hide stuff from dad in order to make sure that, you know, they don't know that something's going on, or vice versa?
I even went on a date last week.
I was like,
and Rob's like, how's your date going?
Kev? How's Kev dog doing?
I'm like, but that he's at my house taking care of the kids, so I can go out on a date, which is really rare. But like that, I can go out on a date, or I can go out, or he can go out, and it's just there's literally the kids. I just don't even think see it, but that's the whole point.
Yeah, and I'll just say something about Tiger Lily, right? So at first it was a little weird for me to be like, my ex-wife is having a baby with somebody else, but as she came into my life, and as I just really warmed up to the idea, like the thing that, like, I think I was going down that road of, this is weird that my ex-wife has another child, right? But then what I came back to was that this child, this little girl, is my children's sister,
adored, loved, little sister,
like she is their blood, even though she's not mine. So I'm going to do everything I can to empower their relationship with her. And she actually probably doesn't know she said it this way, but the way she said it was perfect. Was she said, I help our boys take care of her. I don't do necessarily a lot for her. I just make sure that they're empowered to do what they need to do to take care of her.
To be good big brothers.
Providers that way, to take care of her.
Look out for her.
Yeah, exactly. And I love and adore her, and she is freaking amazing. And so the term that Rebecca coined,
Uncle Daddy. Rob is her Uncle Daddy. He's kind of like an uncle, but he is a daddy in our home, so she's her uncle. Robbie's her Uncle Daddy. That's great. I love it.
So what I love is the raising of the standards. Like we just took our standards and just said, look, like it's up here, and then we're even looking at like people we date and in the intimate relationships in the future. We're saying, hey, look, like this is crucial. This has to be here, and this has to work here. And if we can make it all work, awesome, let's move forward and see what happens. And if not, then it's just not going to, because what we've built and created is at a level that's really high. Yeah. And so this is also amazing, because what it allows you to do internally is attract those same types of people.
Yeah.
And I love that. And in week 8 of our program, we teach you how to go and rewire your nervous system and literally ensure that you're attracting the right kind of person for you. And then it's super aligned with everything and all the new truth that you've embraced and the new ownership that you've taken on and the new standards you've set.
That's what, can I just get that module of your program? Because I haven't figured that one out yet.
Yeah, that one was a big one. And
it's important
for a while, I was attracting the complete worst kind of person for me. And it was like, okay, how is this happening? They're constantly chasing me. Like, they just are like, what is going on? And I literally had to travel around the world, meet with a bunch of different people, do a whole bunch of different experiments. And then I finally figured it out. And I was like, okay, so what we're really doing is taking everything that you guys have done, which is super customized and personalized, and giving everyone a process to all achieve similar results using principles.
So great.
Because core principles will get us similar results, even if it's a different person, or someone might say, hey, like, my guy's just never going to be like Robbie. And it's like, okay, well, hold on a second. We don't even think that way. We just think, let's raise the tide, and all the boats in the tide will just kind of raise up. Yeah. So there's a way, and we've seen this in sports and athletics and musicians, stuff like that. Like, someone just brings this level and the band just rises up. Someone just brings this level and the team just rises up. Someone just brings this level and the other ex-spouse or whatever, they just start rising up.
It's true.
So you just really see that as a vision. And then that's just what we bring about. And so that's really cool.
It's interesting about that too, because in the first relationship, like longer term dating relationship I got into post divorce, was actually really abusive emotionally and psychologically. And when I that lasted more than a year. And when I finally ended that, and I told Rob, he was like, Rebecca,
it was hard.
Why would you put he was like, I was never even that way. Why would you end what we had, which was good and like hard, but he's like, why would you go?
But not abusive. Yeah.
Why would you walk in? Again, that's a whole other story, a whole other dynamic that I had to since heal, because I had several relationships since our divorce that were emotionally toxic and abusive, and I had to look at why I was attracting that and heal all those wounds and stuff. But for him, just like, he was upset. He was like, I had no idea. And why would you let anybody treat you that way? Why would you go through that? Why would you hide that from anybody? Why would you carry that shame? Why would you, and it was like, you're right. Like, so even have that level of partnership where it does raise up the expectations for everybody. And I'm like, if he's, like, I loved his ex-girlfriend. I still love her. We're like super sad they broke up and all that stuff.
Yeah, look, I am too. She's amazing also.
She's amazing, but I'm like, she better be amazing.
Yeah.
And I know the kind of man that I'm going to be with better be amazing too. Because Rob needs to get along with him. He needs to respect Rob. You're not just getting me. Yeah. You're getting this, you're getting Sean, you're getting Ryan, you're getting Tiger Lily, you're getting his future wife, you're getting, it's
all connected.
It's all connected. And we have to stop pretending like our choices don't impact other people.
Yeah. Because and the Wonder Woman posters, you're getting those too. So.
And the Wonder Woman posters.
Yeah, no, I mean, even going back to like Tiger Lily's dad, right? Who's not in the picture right now. Like, I made a very consistent effort to make sure that I had a really good relationship with him. I would engage him. There were times that I didn't want to, and I knew some of the things that were going on between them, and it was hard for me to hear or know, but it was like, I know that I have got to up my game and engage him, because that impacts
my happiness.
That impacts her happiness, which impacts my kids' happiness, and then it impacts my happiness. Yeah. Like, and I've even said to people, I'm like, look, it's super selfish. It's my happiness, right? Screw everybody else. Right. But at the same time, what I'm saying is, it's like, if my happiness is that important to me, so is my children's. Yeah. So is hers. Yeah. So was who's in her life.
He had a good alliance, with him until that whole thing fell apart. But he would kind of be like, dude,
I've
gotta step
encouraged
up,
him. I'm
coach
like,
him, step
seriously,
up
he
your
came-
game, all that stuff.
there were some times he actually came to me and said, dude, what do I do? Which
He's like, you know this woman.
yeah,
How
and
can
I'm like,
I?
yeah, totally. So which I would say is, you know, again, it's an example of the work that I've done and that we've done to create a working relationship,
Mhm.
a partnership with love, with respect, honor, appreciation, gratitude for each other. Those are the elements. And it's like, when I feel like when we can bring those elements to the relationship, we can make anything work. Anything.
Well, what's really powerful, and you know, we talk about this a lot, but what you continuously focus on is where all your energy goes,
Yeah, totally.
right?
That's
And
what you
so
get.
if you go back when you're married to somebody, even living together, but especially when you're married, because there's just a different level of commitment, of seriousness, of legality. You know all of their weaknesses and you know all of their strengths.
Yeah.
But interestingly, most people choose to focus on all of the weaknesses when it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to, you could choose to focus on all the strengths. And
Yeah.
that's something that's happening as an element in your partnership that's
Agreed.
giving you guys a lot of success. Is you're saying, you know what? Hey, and I remember even telling, I mean, I got Brooklyn shirt on, right? I'm telling Brooklyn, I was like,
Cute girl.
you know what? Your mommy is such an amazing cook. Like I cook all the time. She wouldn't even let me. She's like, no, I got it. And it was always good. And it was always healthy. There was one time she made it and it was bland. Like the meal was just bland, but she was pregnant and she's like, hey, look, I made a bland meal because I can't eat a lot of flavor. I'm going to throw up. You know? And I just laugh and I said, and she's such a great dancer and she'll just light up because when they hear you, they also feel the energy. But when you choose to focus on, hey, I know this person really well. I was married to them and here's their strengths. Here's what they're really good at. Here's what makes them sad. Here's what makes them happy. And you choose to leverage the knowledge that you have to create ongoing creation.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is still tied together in the universe anyways. There's no possible separation or entropy where like all energy is just deleted. It's always just converted to something else. So the high level vision, I think what we're trying to create is like just function. And the only way to do that is to utilize the intelligence and knowledge that you've gained and focus on the stuff that's really the most important.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I said to you, in any relationship you've been in, it's like, hey, it was great. And then it wasn't great. It's like, well, if I do what I did, I'll have what I had. Like,
Right.
oh my gosh, whoa,
Yeah.
wait a sec. If I continuously treat her how I did in the beginning, I'll still have the relation. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when we stop doing that. What's beautiful though, is you guys have been able to take everything, you know, the business intelligence, relationship intelligence, whatever we want to call it, and like utilize that in a good, powerful, positive way that serves and protects.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. And that's what we want to have happen. It really is.
Yeah.
So
So good.
I know we're getting close. I don't know how much time you set aside, but what I was
Well,
like,
we said an hour. It's been 90 minutes now. So whatever,
Yeah.
whatever you want, you know, it's all good. So
yeah. So I just thought in closing, and we can definitely do a follow-up. I'm seeing a lot of different comments, engagement, stuff like that, which is phenomenal. We've had continuous viewers the whole time. So I'm sure we'll have a bunch of follow-up and we can probably do something follow-up and then, you know, use something with kids and stuff if you want to.
yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to ask, just as we kind of close down this conversation, and obviously we'll have more in the future, but Rob, what would you like to have happen in the future for your ex-wife and your family? So I know that's like an interesting kind of weird question.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going to keep going with the,
Yeah.
What?
Oh. Yeah. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm done asking, right? So it's like, what's the vision of what you'd like to have happen ultimately?
Like in our family dynamic?
Yeah.
Or for me specifically. Oh, okay.
Either way, it's up to you, but I'll ask both of you that.
Yeah. So really, like, how I see it is, and this is something that even before we separated, like, we had said, what is it going to take to raise our boys to be great men? Right. And we still hold that, right? And I would say what we're doing now is training them to be that. Even though it doesn't look the
Even
way
though we have teenagers.
it does. You think it does,
Even
right?
though the jury is way out on that.
It's we're
still
talking about
trying.
great men, because they're definitely not men yet. So anyway, yeah. So what I see is really, and it's a constant, like for us, a constant partnership in how we interact with each other, because this is one of the things when it comes to raising children. I think one of the biggest problems and issues that divorced parent have is, are we on the same page about how we want to raise our children? What kind of movies we want them to watch, what kind of books, what kind of, and we're not, but we're way better than most people would be. How do we have we not have the dynamic that we have? And that really is the intention. And that's why I'm like, if they have the same room, the same place, and everything is consistent, then it gives them a better chance at success. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is for me. Mm-hmm. And how do we impact how great they are? And now including Tiger, right? A great woman, a Wonder Woman. And you call her Little Goddess?
My tiny goddess.
Tiny goddess, right? It's beautiful.
Tiny goddess.
It's awesome, right? And so our actions are to fulfill on that goal. Yeah. They are a great man, right? They're helping to raise their sister. That's helping them to be great men, because a lot of boys, I never had that opportunity, right? And just in the things that we want to teach them. And we've talked about traveling and how that looks. And so I don't know if that really fully answers your question, but my intention is that how do we raise these children to be great human beings? And like you're saying, the tide, right? So if we're the ones raising the tide, they'll come up as we do. And the more partnership that we have, the better chance at success they have. I mean, ultimately. And we're talking about like business ideas, right? I've pursued business and failed, but learned a lot along the way, and now pursuing another business. And she's been very successful at it. And that's one of the things that we want them to understand.
It's how awesome it is to work for yourself.
Yeah, and how to provide for yourself, and you can make more money, and you can, and the difference that you can make in the world, and the experiences and the opportunities that it gives you. And, those are the things that.
Yeah. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah. And what about for you, Becca? Like, what's your vision of outcome of what you'd ultimately like to have happen? And the reason I ask this is because it's interesting, because there's a partnership here, and you guys have literally been your own people. And so just so everyone can gain a perspective of the different visions that you have, but how it's still working and coming together.
Yeah. I feel like for me, whatever is important to Rob is important to me. If he wants to, we had a talk just a couple of weeks ago, I think, in my kitchen, where I just hit me. I said, Rob, I think I just realized you have been far more supportive of me and my ideas and my businesses than I ever was of yours. Because in our marriage, it was like, another idea. Okay, let's see how this one goes. You know what I mean? Like, he's just the way he's wired, and all of that stuff. He's a great ideas guy, and I'm a good finisher. I'm a good plan, strategic, follow through, get it done, and give it legs in the community. And he's got a lot of ideas. And I was like, is this another idea that's going to go nowhere? And that was part of that. We're talking about that kind of suppressive relationship of our marriage that was laden with expectations. But now, I tell even my own clients, they know a lot about Rob. And I have said so many times, there is no way that I would be building the business that I have right now, making the kind of impact I am in the world right now, if it wasn't for that man being totally supportive, totally behind me every single step of the way, encouraging me, believing in me, taking care of the kid. I worked 60, 80 hours a week when our boys were like 1 and 3. Like he really had my back totally. So I feel like now I'm in a place of understanding and maturity and stability and whatever in our lives that I'm like, how can I support you? You know, like truly, even to the point where if he needed it, and he doesn't, but if he needed it, I'd be like, you know what, just come live with us. Let me put a roof over your head. You can go pursue you can start up your new business. Like, do you know what I mean? It's from this place of, I want to see you thrive, and I'm no longer attached to your success or failures. I'm just committed to you winning at whatever's important to you, because that's who I am for everybody in the world. Like, that's what I do, is I help people get what they want. I help them thrive. I help them build successful businesses. Like, you know, so it's like, why wouldn't I extend that to this guy? I mean, look at him. He's super awesome, you know, and he's handsome Rob, right? You know, but it's like, yeah,
Rob.
we, you know, yeah, we do have some good looking kids. Oh, we'll say that. We got some good looking kids. But it's, you know, that's important to me, is that he, you know, whatever he's encountering, he comes to me for coaching. I come to him for, you know, for coaching. Like, he's stuck with something, I want to help him move through that, because I have the skills to do that, you know? So it's like,
and besides the skills, it's like you have the interest.
I
Because
care.
It goes back to
I want him to
that,
succeed,
yeah,
you know?
it's in my best interest that she has that, and it's in her best interest that I do too.
Yeah. So it's really just that mutual giving of like, what's important to you? Okay, great. How can I support you? And it's like, you know, we have this shared calendar with the kids, and I'll say, okay, these are he knows I work every day from home 8 to 5, but then I have these, you know, piano shows, like, you know, 2-4 nights a week, whatever. So we'll put all that on the calendar. He puts when he has appointments. So we know like when he's going to be home with the kids, and, you know, just all of that stuff. When we travel, I mean, he invited me, of course, got permission from his sister first. He invited me to come down to Southern California or Northern California and have Thanksgiving at his sister's house. Like, we would do that.
Yeah.
We would go on trips together with our children, because we're friends. It's great for the kids. Instead of, I go to Thanksgiving with dad, Thanksgiving with mom, it's like, why don't you just bring mom and Tiger?
Yeah.
I love his family. He loves my family. Like, it's not weird for us anymore, you know? So we think about in the future, like, we have talked about doing family vacations together, just like you would, you know, friends vacate, you know, your best friend and their family and their kids and stuff. It's just that we just happen to have the same kids, you know? So it's like, just whatever's important to him, that's important for me to see him grow and succeed at that. So, you know, and I think that's really what a relationship should be. I think that's really what a partnership should be. It's not a needs barter, but let me help you be the best version of yourself, and you're going to help me be the best version of myself as an interdependent thing, not a codependent thing, you know, like, if that makes sense, you know, two individual people that can really serve and support each other, instead of, you didn't give me what I needed, now you owe me, and you're just screwing with me, so I'm going to get you back, you know, like, just you be you, I be me. And together we're going to build a better place for our kids, you know? So,
beautiful. No, I appreciate it. And I want to thank both of you for coming on the call today. Your level of maturity is really tremendous. We've had 2,503 people go through the Parenting Accelerator program in the last 4 years.
That is awesome.
It's awesome.
We want to see that at like 20,000.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So this
100%.
movement,
It's needed, guys. We could have built this course, but he did it, and it's
we're
probably
so glad
better.
that we've talked about this. We're like so glad that you did this, and it's just irony that she knows.
I didn't even know.
I
mean, we were even in a mastermind together, and you were doing your other thing, and then he's like, "Do you know your friend Jeremiah Webb does this parenting thing?" And I was like, "Holy crap! Let's support that."
Yeah.
You know, so we are happy to spread that message and just be ambassadors for your cause, because we know how bad it can suck, and we know how awesome it can be. And if that gives hope to anyone out there, to just recognize that it only takes, one of my favorite sayings is, the fish isn't sick, the water's dirty. You know, I look at him and I go, oh, he's really green around the gills, the problem's over there. No, the water is the poop. Here. It's the communication. And it takes one person to start to clean things up, and it changes the dynamic for everyone. It took one move of kindness on Rob's part that changed everything for us. And then we started cleaning up, and now we can breathe, and we can be in the same fishbowl, and we have a great time, you know, respecting each other's space. So it's not that the other person ever has to change. It's one person has to be committed to changing. And that person is obviously you, if you're watching this, you know, so,
Yeah.
so that's important to us to share that message.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a really great insight, because typically when people come to me, and a lot of times it was business owners and they're like killing it in their company, but then their marriage is suffering,
Yeah.
right? Or their kids are never seeing them. And they're like, hey, you need to fix her ass or fix his. And I'm like, let's just work, you know, and we just work together. And all of a sudden the whole thing would raise up without ever talking to the other spouse at all. And that's kind of how the program was born. And so, what I want to do is also let you guys know I'm going to gift you into the program. So you'll both be able to log into the portal,
Wow,
utilize
awesome.
it, go through it,
Thank you.
chew it up, taste it. So
I'm sure we can learn a lot too,
asking about.
you know, we're not like perfect. We work really well together, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot that we can
I think just
sharpen
be
our tools
more,
with.
just be more active and engaged at, like, I'd say being more deliberate.
Yeah.
Instead of, because we've been just navigating, and it's worked for the most part. I mean, it hasn't been perfect by any means, but it's been really, really good, honestly.
We're all about growth and up leveling. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I just wanted to thank you and appreciate what you guys are doing. Obviously we'll keep continuing. This is a movement that's never going to stop. In some ways we're joined at the hip, because I literally have a vision of like 2,000 couples having this very same kind of types of conversations that you are right now. And that we've led to that and helped that, not only from people that are doing it right now and are sharing that, but also me capturing all the process of everything, so that anybody, even a low intelligence person on their worst day, couldn't screw it up. Like, there's just, here are the steps and here's the process, and we're going to help you get there no matter what. And so just for anyone that's wondering, so the program is online. You can access it whenever you want. The biggest problem that you can obviously attest to, and I can attest to, and many, is mediators and attorneys and therapists, all that stuff. They're on their own schedule, and it never matches yours. And it's never when you're ready to learn, and it's never when you're ready to go. And it sure as hell doesn't match your kids' schedule, because there's like a window of opportunity for kids. And if you miss it, it's gone. Like, you don't get it back. And they are not at all attorneys. No matter how much you pay them, they could care less about your life and your schedule and your initiatives and all that stuff. Some will pretend, and maybe every once in a while get a good one, but it's really like, this is 24/7. There's an awesome Facebook group with a whole bunch of graduates in it. We have live support. We have live Q&A calls twice a week. And then we're going to be doing stuff like this, you know. And then my vision is also, it's like, I live in Sarasota, Florida. Like, there's no snow out there, right? It's kind of cold today. It's
and we don't have a
78.
beach here in
you know,
Utah.
so cool. and the beach is right out there. And it's just like, I'm looking out there and I'm like, hey, this is like one of the best beaches in the country. I want to do a retreat once or twice a year where we're just bringing in people that are totally rocking it, getting them together and creating some amazing relationships and some business networking and a lot of other cool stuff. But we'd like to have you, you know, participate as much as you want. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
what you're doing. And anything that you want to leave, or any additional thoughts you want to leave before we close it out?
You know, it starts with being responsible. That's it. I was responsible for how I was being. And that's how it starts. And then so people can, and that's a tough pill. That's a tough pill to swallow. But at the same time, it's like,
it's the only way to happiness.
Yeah, it really is.
You're giving other people your power.
Otherwise she has all the power. I'm like, nope, this is my responsibility. And the crazy thing that happened was, instead of feeling all terrible about it, I felt liberated.
Yeah.
That was the irony of it. Yeah. I felt liberated because I took responsibility for how I was being, like how I was treating her, how I was being with her, and how I had been in the marriage.
Yeah.
And
that's freedom.
Yeah. And that's freedom.
For me, it's that great results require great effort and great sacrifice. And you have to invest in yourself. You have to do the work. It's not like we just fell upon this, you guys. It's not like and then just one day it got better. It was like we struggled for a long time, even before we got divorced. And then we got divorced, and we, there was just so many things. And the best thing I love about what you're doing, Jeremiah, is that people don't have to figure it out on their own. It's no brainer that they can go through a proven system with proven strategies with somebody who's figured it out. I mean, if I were to show you my library of all of the books I have about kids and parenting and marriage and divorce and how to decide if you should get divorced and co-parenting, blah, 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 blah. It's like there's just massive value just in working with a mentor who has gotten the results that you want, or is at least 2 steps ahead of you in your own process. Because even if you're 2 steps ahead, you're shining a light and reaching back and saying, hey, follow me, and I'm gonna give you everything I've got as soon as I discover it. And I just think that's really, really important for people to understand, is that you will get results commensurate with what you work for. And if it matters to you, if you love your kids, get over your stuff. Seriously. With your ex. Just get over it. Get over it. Because for there's a future of love and beauty and partnership, or at least just peace, at least like functionality. There's a future in front of you that is way bigger and way more bountiful than any past that you've ever had. So I'm just an advocate of digging in and doing your work. The change begins here. Yeah. You do your work, and then you start to get different kinds of results.
There's way more peace, happiness, fulfillment, fun. I mean, all of that, all the things that you want, you get from it. I mean, it's that simple. But it's good.
We have a great life, and it was really hard. Yeah. It was really hard, but it was absolutely worth the work. Yeah. In that sense, I wouldn't change a thing, but it's worth doing the work, and it doesn't need to be harder than it is already. So that's why we totally support what you do. We're a big fan of.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for letting us tell our story too.
Yeah.
Well, Rob and Rebecca, appreciate you creating time. And again, the page says it all, creating time for our kids. Like, it's not that you have it, it's not that it's just there, like you just literally create it. And sometimes you got to create it out of thin air. But I do want to highlight that our program can be accessed at parentalone.com. You can find out more about it. Our Facebook page, Parents Creating Time for Their Kids. And I wanted to thank Rob and Rebecca and everything you're doing. I'm excited to continue to keep interacting and working with you. And then I also just let me say, I am so grateful for my daughter's mom. She gave me the most beautiful, special, incredible little princess. She's 6.5, Brooklyn. And if you see us together, you will laugh. We'll finish each other's sentences, and we have such a deep, beautiful, special connection. And I couldn't have asked for a better girl. And it's not 9 months, is it, Rebecca? It's really 10. You're really pregnant for 10, because there's just like everything that's going on. But it's like, it's not just having a kid, it's literally every single day with all the things that come along with it, craving weird things, smelling things no one else smells, like all this stuff that I got close to when I dieted in the bodybuilding shows and world. And that was just a different thing that no one knows about because I never post anything about it. But I did that for quite a while. And when you diet and you get super, super shredded before a show, it's almost like you're pregnant, So I get a little teeny, but it's not really anything close. And so
you've never had another human inhabiting your abdominal cavity. That's a totally different experience. But not to invalidate your challenges by any means.
No,
it's just literally nothing like it.
So, along with honoring her mom, I honor you, and I honor all mothers out there, and thank you to all of them for all history, for everything you've done. We're excited. Thank you for joining our live today. You can connect with us through Facebook page. Our names are on there. Reach out to us and share with us your thoughts, your wins, your victories. We appreciate it. Everyone have a great rest of your weekend. Again, thanks you guys. Take care.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.